Hello and namaste. Welcome to Temples, Books and Science. In my previous videos, I have spoken about what quantum physics reveals about consciousness and how its findings align with the fundamental principles of Vedanta. Today, I want to talk about consciousness from the perspective of Vedanta. What does Vedanta say about consciousness? Is there any scientific proof for Vedanta's claim? Here is the definition of Brahman, the consciousness principle from Mundakopanishad. This is the first Vedantic text that I learnt. यत्तदद्रेश्यमग्राह्यमगोत्रमवर्णमचक्षुश्रोत्रं तदपाणिपादं नित्यं विभुं सर्वगतं सुसूक्ष्मं तदव्ययं यद्भूतयोनिं परिपश्यन्ति धीराः. Which means Brahman, the consciousness principle, cannot be perceived using your senses. You cannot see, hear, or touch it. It cannot be grasped with your hands. It has no origin. It has no form. It has no properties. It is eternal. It is all pervading. It appears as everything in the universe. It is extremely subtle. It is beyond decay. It is the thing from which the entire universe emerges. When you read this definition, you tend to be incredulous at first. How can anything like this even exist? But the most common thing in the universe has all these characteristics. Can you guess what it is? It is so ubiquitous that we don't realize what an amazing thing it is. I am talking about space. Now, let us try to understand the nature of Brahman using the analogy of space. What does space look like? How large is it? What are its dimensions? What is it made of? Does it flow like water? Does it make noise? Can you touch it? It is devoid of all properties and devoid of all attributes. This is the meaning of the word avarnam, devoid of attributes. Okay, now since it is not made of anything and does not have any properties, can you deny its existence? Can you say there is nothing called space? No. In fact, everything in the universe exists because space exists. Yet it is undefinable. This is because your sense organs and mind are only capable of grasping things that have properties like shape, size, sensation, weight, color, etc. While it is possible for you to comprehend everything that is contained in space, but not space itself. You can think of space only in relation to the things it contains. An absolute empty space, devoid of everything and unbound by anything, is impossible to comprehend even for science. This is the meaning of yattadadreshyam, that which cannot be grasped by our sense organs of knowledge like eyes, ears, mind, etc. Okay, then is it possible to hold space in your hands? Is it possible to bend space to your will? Is it possible to expand and shrink space? That too is not possible. You can build four walls and say, I created this space. That is only your illusion. Space is unchanged by the walls you build or demolish. This is the meaning of agrahyam, that which cannot be grasped, controlled, or changed through our actions. Agotram means that which does not have any origin. Achakshushrotram tadapani padam means that which does not have eyes, ears, hands, and legs. Because Brahman is defined as consciousness, we should not jump to the conclusion that it is an embodied being like all of us. Our experience has taught us that consciousness is always contained within a body. So when we think of a conscious entity, we think of an embodied entity. Vedanta is making sure that this confusion does not arise. Brahman does not have a form like a human form with eyes, ears, hands, and legs. Consciousness is formless like space. The entire universe is contained in space. It pervades everything. Nothing can exist without space, and nothing can exist outside of space. It is sarvagatam, all pervading. Space is the only thing in the universe that is eternal, nityam, and beyond decay, tadavyayam. The stars, the sun, the galaxies decay and perish, but not the space that contains them. Now, let us try to understand the term vibhum, that which appears as everything in the universe. This does not seem to be true for space, isn't it? Space is a distinct entity, and the things that it contains, like stars and galaxies and planets and living beings, are different from space. But take a moment to think about it. An atom is 99.9% empty space. Quantum physics has shown that even the particles that make up an atom don't exist in any real sense. It is, in fact, empty space that appears as everything in the universe. Hence, Vibhum. Space is one of the subtlest and enigmatic entities in the universe. Hence, Sushukshmam. And it is the womb of the universe, the thing from which the entire universe emerged. Yet Bhuta Yonim. Whenever we talk about consciousness and you are finding it hard to wrap your head around it, think about space. Something which contains everything but untouched by what it contains. The flaming stars don't burn it, no filth can dirty it, no beauty can enhance it. Go to a garbage dump. It is disgusting and filthy. It can taint everything it touches, but not the space that contains it. These are the characteristics of Brahman too. Vedanta defines Brahman as an entity which is a lot like space but not inert like space. Not only does consciousness pervade everything like space, it observes everything. Only because Brahman, the consciousness, observes the universe exists. Let me repeat this. The only reason the universe exists is because consciousness is observing it. Every little thing in the universe exists only because this consciousness principle is observing it. Moreover, the only thing that this consciousness does is observe. It does nothing else. That is why it's called Sakshi Chaitanyam, the witness consciousness. The universe emerges because Brahman is observing it. The universe is sustained because Brahman is observing it. And when Brahman stops observing the universe, it ceases to exist. In order to understand this aspect of Brahman, we need another analogy. The analogy which Vedanta uses most frequently is that of a dream. Let us examine what happens when you dream and try to understand this aspect of Brahman. When you dream, you create an entire world in your head. What is this world made of? It is nothing but the projection of your consciousness. Your consciousness pervades everything in your dream. The mountains, the stars, the galaxies that appear in your dream, and the space that contains them is nothing but your consciousness. Why does this dream exist? Because you're observing it. What happens when you cease to observe it, like when you wake up or go into a dreamless deep sleep? This dream ceases to exist. Your consciousness pervades everything in your dream. It is your consciousness that appears as every object in your dream, and the entire dream world exists only because you're observing it. Let us now examine this from a scientific lens. Is there any evidence for the all pervasiveness of consciousness? Several experiments have been carried out that seem to indicate that consciousness is not confined within individual body and mind. Princeton University has a department called Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab, or PEER. This lab was set up to determine if our thoughts and intentions impact the real world. One of their signature experiments is called the Global Consciousness Project. The experiment uses random number generators which are placed in different locations all over the world. You can think of a random number generator as an electronic coin tosser. When you toss a coin, it will either land on heads or tails. In the case of a random number generator, it will generate 0 or 1 at random. Just like a coin toss, you cannot predict when a 1 or 0 would appear. How do you know if a series of numbers are random? When you look at a large sequence of numbers, you should not see a pattern. You should not be able to predict the next number. Only then the sequence of numbers can be called random. Here are two number sequences. Can you tell me which one is random and which one is not? Just by looking at these two sequences, you can conclude that A is a series of random numbers and B is not a series of random numbers. It's like when you listen to a sound, you can distinguish between noise and music. Music will have a rhythm to it and noise will not have any rhythm. This is how you distinguish between a sequence of non-random and random numbers. This experiment studies whether our thoughts and intentions affect the behavior of random number generators. What they discovered was that when a large number of people focus their attention on the same thing, the random number generator exhibited peculiar behavior. The numbers that they generated were no longer random. The sequence of numbers they generated looked more like B and less like A. They found this change in random number generators whenever big events happened because a large number of people were paying attention to the event at the same time. This effect was even higher when the event evoked strong emotional response. For example, when Princess Diana died, the attention of the entire world was focused on it. You could see a significant change in the behavior of these random number generators. The most dramatic change in their behavior was recorded during 9/11, where the effect lasted for several hours. Take a look at this chart published by the Peer Lab. Look at the dates on the x-axis. What you see on 9/10 and 9/12 are the normal behavior of random number generators. Now see how the graph looks on 9/11. The large peak indicates that the numbers are no longer random. They have predictable pattern. Now you see the first blue line on the left. It is labeled 8:45. That is when the first plane hit the North Tower. You can see that this behavior of random number generators lasted several hours, after which it became random again. The odds of this happening by chance are less than 1 in 100 billion. There seems to be some deep connection between the mind and physical reality which we don't yet fully understand. When I read about this experiment, I was reminded about another famous analogy used in Vedanta to explain consciousness. The all-pervading consciousness is compared to an ocean and conscious beings to waves in the ocean. A wave and ocean are not different from each other. We just label a peculiar behavior of ocean as a wave. Normally, waves appear and disappear at different times and different intervals with different force and cancel each other out. They don't impact the ocean in any significant way. You don't notice any visible change in the ocean because of the waves. But what if all the waves were synchronized into a single large wave? The result would be a tsunami. When that happens, you'll feel the entire ocean shake. I think that the attention of a large number of people focusing on a single event is analogous to a tsunami in the ocean of consciousness. When that happens, the impact it creates is clearly noticeable. All the different waves of consciousness synchronized into one large wave of consciousness. The ripple it creates in the ocean of consciousness is what we see as the change in behavior of random number generators. This is how I would explain the findings of this experiment using Vedanta. Now let us go back to the 9/11 chart. Do you notice something even more curious in this chart? The first plane hit the North Tower at 8:46 a.m. But the change in the numbers start at 5 a.m. itself, 3 hours before the plane stuck. How is that possible? It was almost as if the whole world had a premonition about this event. This premonition has been observed not just in large groups but on individual test subjects too. Now, let me take you to another experiment carried out by a scientist called Dean Radin. This is how the experiment was set up. A volunteer, let's say her name is Mary, is seated in front of a computer monitor and asked to look at a series of images that appear on the monitor. These images are a random mix of photographs. Some of these photographs are neutral, like a picture of a group of strangers walking or a picture of a building, the kind of pictures that don't evoke any emotional response. Some of these photographs were emotionally charged, like a small child hurt or a funeral of a beloved figure, etc. The scientists recorded Mary's physiological response to these images. When a neutral image is viewed, there is no significant change in Mary's stress levels. When an emotionally charged image is shown, it produces stress responses in her brain, which can be measured by attaching sensors to her skin. You would expect to see the stress response in Mary's brain only after she sees the emotionally charged image. As soon as an emotionally charged image is viewed by Mary, there would be a sharp spike in her stress levels. But that's not what happened. The stress response in her brain does not begin after the image is viewed. Instead, the brain stress response begins full 5 seconds before the image appears on the screen. Mary's mind is responding to the image 5 seconds before she actually sees it. This experiment was repeated with thousands of volunteers and yielded the same result. It is as if the brain knew the future at a subconscious level. The same results show up even for your actions, things which you think you are in control of. Let's say you decide to move your hand. How would the process flow happen in your brain? You decide to move your hand, after which the brain sends a signal to your hand to move. If a scientist scans your brain and notes how the brain signals appear, this is the order in which he should see the signals emerging in your brain. But experiments have shown otherwise. Brain signals emerge in your brain few seconds before you even make the decision to move your hand. Let me repeat. The brain starts generating the signals for the movement of your hand even before you decide to move it. The belief that the hand is moving because you have decided to move it seems to be an illusion. Your subconscious mind has made that decision before you. So, is free will real or is it just an illusion? This question is now being seriously debated. I have spoken extensively about entangled particles in my previous videos. The behavior of these particles show that the future event changes the past and vast distances are transcended as though they don't exist in the presence of a conscious observer. Science has still not arrived at conclusive answers to these findings. In my opinion, these are all tantalizing clues to the presence of consciousness beyond human body and mind. If consciousness is something that emerges in living beings and does not exist outside of them, how can it impact the universe in such a profound manner? From observers bringing particles into existence, to making time and space disappear, to impacting the functioning of equipments in the real world, observers seem to be exhibiting a disproportionately large influence on the universe. It is my strong belief that if we examine these findings of science by applying Vedantic principles, we can find good answers to these paradoxes. I will stop here for now. I'm happy to share that I have started a Telegram channel to send updates about my videos. I have given the link in the description below. Please sign up to be part of Temple's Books and Science community and never miss a new video that I post. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like icon and share it with your friends. If you have not already subscribed, please do. Until next time, Namaste.